So, yeah, there was this group, and it was a commune, and the passage I'm going to read is about the first house group. The house group was simply people living communally who examined their individual lives and collective lives through the language of psychoanalysis in order to understand how they were relating, where they came from, maybe even where they're going. So it was 1964. At that time, there was only one of these communes, house groups. Eventually, there were 35 of them, all in the annex. And as well as 4 farms and office buildings and so forth. Anyway, at that time, there was only one house, which is at 152 Howland. And because so many people wanted to be part of it, it was jammed, totally jammed. And Barry Nickel, B.P. Nickel, the poet, and I were working together at the Sigmund Samuel Library, which is what one did if one didn't know what one wanted to do. And he said, why don't you come on over, have a look at it. So I did. This is what happened. Barry and I arranged to meet after work in late July at the Howland House. Barry was only there temporarily and was waiting to move into a new house group. Sheila, a young and lovely Australian girl doing her walkabout through the rest of the world, worked with us at the library and had also temporarily moved into the house. Sheila and Barry became romantically involved, thereby breaking a cardinal rule. There were 4 other members of the group temporarily attached to the already full house, so tensions were escalating. Up to 3 people had to share some rooms. Almost everyone was in their 20s, carrying all of the immaturity and explosiveness associated with that age, as I think now. When I arrived, Barry came down to the door from an upstairs room and asked me to wait for him on a chair in the first floor hall because he was involved in trying to calm down an upset house member. I could also overhear a conversation between 3 other members in a room on the first floor, one of whom was frustrated and angry about his day at work. Then a drunk young man who had recently been released from a psychiatric hospital and was being accommodated out of compassion staggered down the steps to the landing between the first and second floor, just above where I was sitting. On the steps above him was an emotionally remote, beautiful young girl with a stilted, affected voice who ordered him to stop shouting, stop drinking, and put down his bottle. He screamed obscenities at her and said that if she didn't stop, he would throw the bottle. She replied, "Go ahead then, throw it." I thought to myself, this is not a good move. But then what did I know? Maybe that's what one did in therapy. I was grateful at least that someone seemed to be sane and in control. He screamed at her and threw it, shattering it against the wall. Ignoring me, the 3 men who had been talking rushed out of their room and hustled the young man upstairs. Within minutes, Sheila, clearly drunk or on drugs, flew down the steps from the 3rd floor, taking them 2 at a time, pursued by Barry. She screamed that she would go to Yonge Street and find herself a real man. I heard the screech of a car, and as I bolted for the door, I saw her pick herself up and run off. Barry apologized to me and said he was going to Yonge Street to try and stop her. Not knowing what to do, I sat in the hall for a bit and then followed them in the vain hope that I could help. Later that night, I concluded that living in a group home was a lot more exciting than my isolated rented room. That wasn't typical, but it was not untypical either. And I really do want to thank Jack David and now all the members of ECW Press. It's a wonderful group to be with.